What was David Stearns' reaction when you got the news that Juan was picking the Mets?
Holy shit. Literally, that was my reaction. And so I can only imagine the reaction of the people who weren't like in the middle of it. But that was my reaction. And it was a combination of excitement and still some shock. I was confident we put our best foot forward. No question, I was confident we put our best foot forward. But I knew the competition was very stiff. And so when we got him, I was still in sort of that, wow, this is real.
Hey, welcome to Meet at the Apple. I'm Vito Calisi. That's Jonathan Barron. And here with David Stearns, president of baseball operation of the Mets. And I've always wondered this. Are you my boss?
I don't think so. You might be my boss.
No.
You get a forum to comment on things that we're doing.
That's not how it works, David.
You can opine. I don't think I'm your boss. I don't think I have any oversight or sway over your employment here.
Okay.
Zero influence.
Nice. So ask anything you want.
Now we can relax. Well, David, about a year ago was the first time we chatted.
Yeah.
And 2024 turned out to be a great season for this organization. Got off to a rocky start, though. So the first thing we want to ask you is, was there a point during the rough start where you really thought to yourself, wow, this still could turn around and eventually wind up where it did?
We always felt that we had a good team last year. Even when we weren't playing like a good team, we felt we had a good team. I'm also a realist, and I recognize that as we were getting closer and sort of farther away from opening day and closer to mid-season, you begin to run out of time. Like we were 11 games under 500 at one point. That's a pretty steep hill to climb. And so there were times where I did begin to wonder, do we have time left? Not are we a good team, but do we have time left to overcome the hole that we've put ourselves in? And fortunately, we turned it around literally in the nick of time. Like if we had waited another week or two, it might have been too late.
One game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It came down to one game. So we turned it around just in time, and we had a really, really fun 4 or 5 months out of it.
And then you look at what ended up happening that year. This team goes to the NLCS. Does that raise expectations for the following year?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it should raise expectations, and we should have very high expectations of ourselves. And the external expectations are high, and that's great. And when you're coming off of a good season like we had last year, and we have the type of offseason where we added to the team, expectations should be high.
Now, one of those additions, as we all know, signing of Juan Soto, December 8th. One of those nights where I feel like a lot of people will always remember where they were.
Yeah.
What was David Stearns' reaction when you got the news that Juan was picking the Mets?
Holy shit. Literally, that was my reaction. And so I can only imagine the reaction of the people who weren't like in the middle of it. But that was my reaction. And it was a combination of excitement and still some shock. I was confident we put our best foot forward. No question, I was confident we put our best foot forward. But I knew the competition was very stiff. And so when we got him, I was still in sort of that, wow, this is real.
One of the other big signings of this offseason is Pete Alonso is back to the New York Mets. How important is that for this team?
Well, it lengthens our lineup and it makes us better, no question. We've seen what Pete can do over the course of a season in New York with big-time power numbers. And so having him somewhere in the middle of our lineup, having him provide that type of protection for multiple players in our lineup, it's a big deal. And we're thrilled that he's back. I think Pete wanted to come back. And so to be able to make this type of deal happen at this point in the offseason is a really nice step for us.
And Pete came back on a shorter deal. Obviously, Juan gets the very long deal, 26 years old. And a lot of conversation has taken place about your philosophy when it comes to long-term deals. So I'm wondering, what exactly is your philosophy when it comes to long-term deals?
I would say it's not necessarily a philosophy regarding long-term deals. I think it's a philosophy that we have to look at each individual situation closely and treat it as an individual. There are going to be players and circumstances, and there have already in my tenure here, where we get very aggressive on long-term deals. There are also going to be players and circumstances where we don't think at that particular point in time it's the best thing for us to do as an organization. And those opinions can change over time as we get more information about where we are as a team, as we get more information about let's say, future revenue streams for the industry, what the economics of the industry look like going forward, what our contractual commitments are going forward. All of these types of external pieces of information play into our willingness and tolerance for long-term commitments. So it's not an overarching one-size-fits-all philosophy, but it is caution. We have to be able to allow ourselves to continuously upgrade, improve, and evaluate our team. And one of the ways you're able to do that is by maintaining flexibility.
And then in those special circumstances when you're looking at players, and this isn't just long-term, this is in general, but we look at certain guys that get signed back here, and a guy like Sean Manaea, or even a guy like Pete Alonso, where it seems like these are guys who are known for the energy they bring to the clubhouse and the culture they bring. How important is that to you when you're making those decisions?
So energy, culture, chemistry, all extremely important to what we do. And I've said this before, I don't know that we or any front office, frankly, is great at determining which players and which groups of players are going to fit well together. I think what we can do and what we can influence is how we act around our players and the types of coaches we bring in, the type of manager we bring in, who can impact the culture through they are, how they lead, how they manage, how we lead, how we manage. But it's very difficult for me to know this grouping of players is going to mesh really well. So what I try to focus my energy on is how can we act around our players and what type of example can we set for our players and for our clubhouse.
Vito mentioned Sean Manaea. You also acquire Clay Holmes. That's after acquiring a couple new starters the offseason before. What excites you the most about this 2025 starting rotation?
I think we're really deep. And within that depth, I think we have some real upside variance. So we look at, Kodai Senga has the potential to be an ace, has been an ace. Clay Holmes, we believe, we'll find out if we're right, we believe has the stuff to translate into a really quality starting pitcher. So we believe we've got elements of our rotation that can pitch at a really, really high level. Will all of them pitch as number one starters? Probably not. But if we can get a couple to reach that potential like we did last year with a guy like Sean or Sevy or David Peterson when he came back and was healthy, we're going to be in a really good spot.
And you said the word ace, and that actually is a great transition to my next question. I sometimes feel, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, I sometimes feel as if the word ace is a buzz term that fans really like to throw around. But when you go through 162 games and you play a series and then another series, it's almost more important to have 5 or 6 or 7 guys, depth is important, that can give your team a chance to win every night. It doesn't need to be 7 innings of shutout ball with 10 strikeouts and no walks. Where do you stand on that? Because oftentimes that ace is going to cost you a lot of money. Is it sometimes more quality over quantity or quantity over quality in your opinion? Without saying both, because I know in a perfect world
it's
both.
a little bit, it depends on where you are in the season. So to get through 162, you need quantity. We know that. You need 8 to 10 who are going to give you really quality starts over the course of 162. When you get into the shortened playoff series, you need a couple of pitchers who are pitching at a very high level, but they don't necessarily need to be your sort of name brand ace. They need to be guys who are pitching at a really high level at that time. The Dodgers just won a World Series. They beat us. And their ace in the playoffs was Jack Flaherty, who had signed a 1-year deal prior with the Detroit Tigers. So I think you need pitchers who are pitching very well in the postseason to win a world championship. Sometimes that can come in sort of the name brand ace, and sometimes it comes from elsewhere.
We talked about Sean Manaea, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, all of these, Clay Holmes, all of these things together make what feels like the biggest offseason in this franchise's history. Does it feel like that to you when you're putting it together?
Honestly, no, it doesn't, because you're so focused on, and we've just been so focused on what's the next decision and what's the next decision point and what else do we need to accomplish. We recognize we've had incredible ownership to support to spend a lot of money, and we take that responsibility really, really seriously, and we want to make sure we're allocating those resources as effectively as we possibly can. We also understand we're not going to be able to spend like this every single offseason. So if we have an offseason like this, we better spend it wisely. And I think we have. We'll certainly find out in the coming months and years how we did. But I am pleased with our offseason. I'm very excited to get going here.
And Vito mentioned a lot of big names, but you've also excelled in your career. We talked a little bit about this last spring training of finding some diamonds in the rough. Guys like Eric Thames going to Korea, a guy that no one really knew about, hits 30 home runs for you. Then Jesus Aguilar with the Brewers, and last year it came in the form of Jose Iglesias.
Yep.
Are there guys in camp right now, you don't have to necessarily name names, but are there guys in camp right now that you think can have those big impacts that fans aren't necessarily talking about in February?
There are always guys in camp that intrigue me that we're not looking at a lot, and sometimes I'm right about it, and sometimes I'm not. When we were in camp last year, I probably wouldn't have predicted that Jose Iglesias was going to be a key member of our team. I certainly would have predicted.
Had you heard the song?
I did. I heard the song at some point in camp, but prior to that, I had not heard the song.
We heard rumblings about the song at camp. Like when he went into the tent, everybody came up to us after and said, "You gotta have Jose Iglesias."
We knew he was
the-"
a singer.
Yeah. But we hadn't even heard the song at this point. Who knew what it would become?
No, no idea what it become. And someone like Daniel Nunez, there's no way in camp last year I thought he was going to play a big role in our team. Reed Garrett, didn't see him playing a huge role in our team down the stretch. So
Tyrone Taylor, who you traded for one of your first moves of the offseason last year, was one of your first moves as Bobo, was an incredibly important part of the team last year.
Yeah, he did a great job for us. Ended up starting a bunch of games in the playoffs for us. So, teams evolve in very different ways over the course of the season. Jeremy Hefner put up a great snippet for our group the other day. I think we've got 37 or 38 pitchers in camp right now.
Wow.
3 of them were on our opening day roster last year.
Wow.
Now, we had others who were in the organization not on the opening day roster. Some were hurt, some were in AAA. But we had 3 pitchers who are in camp right now who are on our opening day roster.
What does that say?
I don't know. I didn't realize that. Look, it says that we're very active from a roster perspective, and I would hope this time next year maybe we have a little bit more continuity. The goal is not to continuously turn over your roster to that extent every single year, but it certainly speaks to the amount of roster movement we've had. And the number of different players that we have asked to contribute to our team over the past year.
So looking ahead at 2025 right now, let's talk about the NL East, and how would you size it up right now?
It's a great division. It is a really good division. I think we're right smack in the middle of it. I'm not going to sit here and proclaim that we should be the favorites. I think we're a really good team. I also think the Braves are really good, and I think the Phillies are really good, and that's going to create some really stiff competition. We're excited about that, and we're looking forward to going out and on the field performing at the highest level we can.
Both those teams have also made a lot of additions. And speaking of additions, I know you've often said that the trade market, something that excites you. I think you've said that. It's a way of acquiring guys who otherwise wouldn't become available. And again, without shedding too much light if you don't want to, in a given offseason, doesn't have to be this particular offseason, would you say there's multiple near trades that the general public doesn't really know about, but you guys are all often working in, to use a quote, on the 10 or 5 yard line, let's say?
Yeah, I think there are certainly multiple situations every offseason where you feel as one side of the trade partner that you're on that 10-yard line. You never really know where the other side is, but you feel as you're part of the trade, you're on that 10-yard line, and then something happens and it blows up. And that can happen in free agency too, where you think you're making really good progress on a particular player, and then either the player changes his mind or another team comes in from left field and gets the player's attention on something. So I've learned over time that you don't have a deal until you have a deal. And I keep a little depth chart in my office of what our team looks like as we're going through an offseason. And I have learned, do not write a player's name on that depth chart until you have a signed agreement. And so that's how I think about it. I try not to get ahead of myself, and until we've got something in ink, I don't count it.
So trade market's one option, internally is another. Let's talk about player dev for a second. What do you think right now a role the farm system can play in 2025 is?
Yeah, I mean, our farm system needs to play an important role every single year. And we're going to increasingly rely on our system to develop players, not only for us to continuously compete at a high level at the major league level, but also we are, and we saw this last year at the deadline, we do trade from our system at times. And we're going to need both quality and quantity to be able to do that, to supplement our team in ways that we can't, whether it's through free agents, through waiver claims, through internal promotion. Sometimes you do have to go out and acquire major league talent, and often you're doing that with younger players. So the farm system serves multiple purposes within our organization right now. I'm pleased with the continued progression of a number of our players, and it's a goal for us to continue to get better there.
Now, be honest, when you're going to grab a bagel, going to grab a pizza in the city, what do fans ask you about more? The major league roster and saying, hey, go sign this guy, trade for that guy? Or is it, hey, tell me a little bit more about prospect A, prospect B?
It is wild how many questions I get about prospects.
I had a feeling.
It really is. So what's even more interesting for me is I get all these questions about prospects, but then when we start talking about actually opening up space on a major league roster to allow these prospects to play here, not everyone's as supportive about that.
I'm sure.
So it is really fascinating. But when, I would say my the fan comments that I get when I'm out and about this offseason were probably like, 50% major league team inclusive of Juan Soto,
okay,
and then 50% prospect oriented, and that has always stunned me how much fans want to talk about our prospects.
Mets fans are passionate. I'm sure that you also are getting like advice and opinions from guys like
Never.
what's some never you never have a fan coming up to you saying, "Hey, David."
Vito has a couple for you. He'll shout out.
Hey, David, this is Jeff from Syosset.
Yeah.
This is what I think we should be doing right now.
No one has opinions on our team. No.
How about one opinion from you? Favorite place to go eat in Port St. Lucie, Florida?
This is a boring one. Because I think you'll probably hear it for a lot, but like that place Pistaio over in Tradition.
It's a good one.
The Italian restaurant over
Spiro's right outside of it is also kind of nice,
Yeah. So that's the one I'd pick. This is an underrated, in my opinion. This is an underrated spring training location. I think it's really good around here. It's easy to find places to stay. There are good restaurants. There's not traffic. I'm a fan of Port St. Lucie.
Have you tried the chicken place yet?
No, where's the chicken place?
So it's in Tradition. It's on the other side of the Publix Pistaio shopping center.
Is it called the chicken place?
It is called the chicken place.
Okay.
So it's a good question because
this is a who's on first situation.
Yeah.
I've been telling as many people, Zach Weber can attest to this. I have been telling as many people. I feel like I'm doing a public service announcement, that kind of work. I'm not getting a kickback.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just trying to
maybe. Yeah. There could be a free dinner in here somewhere.
You know what? There should be. I've had a lot of chickens.
He's been pushing it so much that you know how spring training dinners are. Like you tell one person, and then all of a sudden you have to figure out a table for 12 people.
Yep.
We did have a situation where it was 3 of us going to dinner. It ended up being 12, and we had to wait 45 minutes for a table. And those people went in wanting to hate it, and they loved it.
I highly recommend it. You can get yourself a nice rotisserie chicken. It's clean eating. They have a beautiful bar.
Even steak.
Steak. They have some
At
fish.
a place called the Chicken Place.
The chicken place, yeah.
See, yeah, going with steak at the chicken place.
Maybe slightly misnamed there. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a place called Meeting Street, which
Yes.
Meeting Street's where you're
Is it
going.
spelled M-E-A or M-E-E?
Well,
MEA.
it's on.
Oh, it is M-E-A spelled.
But
Is
it's
it?
on Meeting Street. That's actually
Yes.
the cross street that it's on.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. Try out the chicken place.
Okay.
And
I'll give it a
then,
shot.
I'm sure we'll cross paths before we get out of here.
I will give it a shot.
Give me the scouting report.
I will
Is
do
it
that.
an 80 grade chicken or what? That's what.
I will let you know.
All right.
While we're on the topic of spring training, I heard from a source that you had a funny thing happen with your car, and you got a Range Rover, and David Stearns was like, "No, you know what? I don't want this thing. I want a nice, classy RAV4."
Well, so our manager of team travel was trying to hook me up with a very nice car, and he generously gave me the Land Rover Defender. Have you ever seen one of these things?
I've seen a Defender. Those things are. You look like Brian Stanek out there.
I'm not sure I can pull it off quite as well as Ryan Stanek can pull it off. That felt like a little bit of a big car for me, so I've swapped it out. And yeah, I drive a RAV4 at home, so a RAV4 feels a little bit more my speed.
You know what's funny? Last year at spring training, I requested a RAV4, and everybody mocked me for it.
Oh.
And I'm so happy.
There's
that you're
nothing
here.
wrong with the RAV4.
It's a nice
We know
car.
Vito talks about it all the time.
I mean, I'm a Nissan Rogue guy these days.
He talks about that too all the time. Yeah.
N-
You ever
nothing
want to
wrong.
talk cars with Vito? He's got his license like 2-3 years ago. So this is the
This is
man.
your experience.
Well, I mean,
He's from New York City.
Do you want to?
Yes.
He's a
Yes.
city. I bet you he didn't get his license.
When'd you
till-
get your license?
So a little bit different. My dad lived in Arizona when I was growing up, And so
sorry, Vito.
Sorry, all of our dads aren't cowboys.
During the summers, I would go out there, and so I learned to drive out there, and I did get my license like at a normal time.
Like 16,
You see,
17.
we do bicker a lot, and one thing we've been bickering about that we want to get your opinion on.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah,
This is
All
good.
We debate about where these 2 home runs rank right now in Mets history.
And it's not about the player. It's just the lore of the homer.
Just the lore of the home run, what the impact it had. And I think you already have a feeling where this is going.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Pete Alonso home run in Milwaukee or the Francisco Lindor home run in Atlanta to clinch for a postseason spot.
Yeah, and I think there were 3 historic home runs.
Lindor's
I would
Grand
also
Slam.
add the Lindor Grand Slam.
I felt like it's unfair to give him 2. It's like the Oscars where you start like watering the category down.
I think I'd be curious what most Mets fans think on this. I think it's tough to exceed the Pete home run because we were heading home, right? Like he doesn't hit that, our season's over. Both Lindor home runs were epic and incredible moments. But if he doesn't hit them, we still have another game to play in both those situations. So I think the Pete home run is the one that was most, was extremely impactful. If he doesn't hit that, we're an out away from all going home, and then the Lindor home runs, I think will live on, and were seminal moments in that season. But we would have been able to play another day.
So that's 2-0. This guy also thought a retired number was a bigger deal than a statue.
It was. I had that opinion for a little while. Yeah.
But
Have you moved on from that opinion?
That one I've moved on from.
Okay.
I've not moved on.
quickly, I'll give him credit.
The Lindor
I
one.
explained it.
If I went on everything that you've stood your ground on, but
we have to be flexible in our opinions. We talk about this all the time in the front office. When we get new information or new opinions, we're allowed to change what we think.
Yeah, Jenna. So our coworker was calling me a flip flopper on a couple of things. And I'm
called him
like,
Mr.
I'm not a
Flip-Flop
flip
at dinner
flopper.
at the chicken place.
I'm learning more, and
That's-
I'm growing, and that's what it's all about.
That is, as you get new information, adjust your thinking.
Thank you, Jenna.
when you walked into this room, one thing you just took a second to look at was this Shea Stadium seat we have
this
here.
is awesome.
Signed by players, and a guy who played at Shea Stadium, David Wright, is getting his number retired this year. How excited? How much are you looking forward to that day?
I'm really looking forward to it. And I when it was announced, I texted back and forth with him, and I told him
Flex.
I can't think of a player in my lifetime who is more worthy of this honor. And I think a large generation of Mets fans feel that way.
Yeah.
So I am thrilled that he's getting that honor. I'm thrilled I'm going to be able to be there to watch it. It's pretty cool.
Doc and Darryl, you're a little young for those guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Doc and Darryl, and certainly have an appreciation for where they are in Mets history. But clearly, I remember the entire David Wright progression from draft through prospect, through emergence, through, perennial all-star and the whole thing. So it's cool that we're all going to be able to be there.
My opinion on the David Wright retirement is that this is one of the most for fans ceremonies we've seen, in the sense of the relationship that this fan base had with David in years that were tough. In years where 07 and 08, those were tough years for fans, and I remember leaving 08, the last game at Shea Stadium, crying and refusing to leave the ballpark.
Yep.
So it's just, I feel like it's such a special day for everybody.
I completely agree, and I think that's right. He was the consistency that this organization needed through a very inconsistent period of the organization. I think he anchored the organization, took a lot on his shoulders through some pretty high times at the front end, and then some really challenging times in the middle there. So, he's a Met through and through. He deserves this day, and it's going to be really cool.
Well, we can't wait either. And maybe there's some guys in that clubhouse right now. One day they'll have their number retired.
That would be pretty cool.
Not to put them on the number retirement track, but we did bring up prospects.
Yeah.
If everybody's asking you about prospects, we got to ask you about prospects. Is there anybody at camp right now, some minor leaguers, that you think fans might not know of who should keep an eye on?
Well, I think the guys we have over here in Major League camp, our fans are probably pretty aware. So, Brandon Sproat, Blake Tidwell, Ryan Clifford, Jet Williams, those guys are really impressive prospects who have earned the right to be in Major League camp. A little farther down, I was actually talking with some of the folks in our PD group. Like, I am really excited to see Nick Morabito.
We love Nick Morabito. We're so happy you just said that.
I'm really excited to see
At
him
the trade
get
deadline
to camp and
last
get
year,
going.
David, we were crossing our fingers. Please not Morabito, please not Morabito. So thank you.
You don't understand. Since we only did the minor league podcast every day, we've just been a heavy Nick Morabito podcast.
He had a great year last year. 50 stolen bases.
He had a great year. It's a really good athlete. It's a guy who plays hard. So I'm excited to see where his progression goes this year with another full year under his belt.
You know, we didn't ever get a chance to ask you this because we haven't spoken since the season ended, but playoffs, man, like, just what was your favorite moment through that whole run?
Man,
the Pete Homer.
Yeah, well, I had
favorite David Stearns moment, favorite like that Moneyball moment of like you are in the movie, you are in the moment, like you're taking this all in.
So one that was sort of personal to me before Game 3 against the Phillies. My mom came to that game.
That's awesome.
And we had some time just like sit behind the screen, just kind of like, I don't know, 40 minutes before the game started, and just kind of take it all in. That was awesome. That was very, very cool.
That's awesome. That is, I mean, and that's what it's all about. You were a kid going to Shea. I'm sure
That's
you went with
exactly
your mom
right.
many times. And I'm sure for you, being the architect of this team that went on this dream run to get to enjoy that moment, that's really
is
cool.
And it puts it in perspective of, I went to Shea with my mom, my dad, my brother, like friends throughout my childhood, and then to now be back in this position at a big moment for the Mets. It was very cool to take that in.
And I know that like everyone talks like, hey, you were a Met fan growing up, but how much sweeter is it that you do have it in your blood like we all do? Being huge fans of this franchise, growing up with it, the pain, the triumphs, all of it, and then getting to make that impact that you are, and watching all the moments that we were just debating unfold. How incredible is that? Do you have to pinch yourself every now and again?
Yeah, it's tough. It is absolutely incredible, and there are moments where you do get like this. Is this real? To be honest, I try to keep those to a minimum a little bit because I got to do work, right? And this isn't a movie; it's real life, and the outcomes here are not preordained. They're based on a number of factors, including the types of decisions we make. And so I have to stay focused on that. But there are moments I recognize how fortunate I am to be in this position and how cool it is that I get to impact this organization.
And another guy making a big impact on this organization is Carlos Mendoza, who Mets fans, I feel like this is the most Mets fans have just supported a manager and really gotten behind a guy I've seen in quite some time. How's it been like this first year just working together and building
this? It's been great. There's a reason Mets fans have gotten behind him because I think he is very personable. He's very passionate about what he does. He cares greatly about the organization and our players, and he's good at what he does. And so you combine all that, and it doesn't surprise me at all that our fan base has rallied around him. And I've really enjoyed working with him. It's fun. He keeps it loose when it needs to be loose. He gives everyone, a kick when they need a kick, and I've enjoyed working with him.
I'm not going to say how many days opening day is away because I don't know when this is going to go out. I don't want to date it. But what's your message to Mets fans? The opener, I think March 27th in Houston, March 28th?
27th.
27th, and then opening day at Citi Field.
On a Friday.
Which will be in Houston. That's right. They have a roof.
Us too.
Yeah. Opening day will be a majestic day at Citi Field with
always
Pete and Juan and the rest of the squad. What's your message to the Mets fans as we get closer to these games being for real?
Look, my message is the same as it is every year. Let's enjoy the ride together. We've got a good team. I think it's going to be a fun ride. It's not going to be straight up all the time. There are twists and turns every single year, and at the end of the day, that's kind of what makes this fun. And we never know what path each year is going to go on. And so, as good as we are getting at predicting certain things on a baseball field, we have no idea what the season ahead of us truly holds. And so I'm really excited to experience it. I hope our fan base is as well. And our fan base can impact games, and we saw that last September and October. And so I'd encourage them to continue to impact games. Come out, be loud, cheer. Let's all have fun together.
Love that.
That's perfect. Well, David, gonna get you out of here. One final thing. Last year, you said your favorite hub snack was peanut M&Ms. Is it still peanut M&Ms?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a man of the hub, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, people are in there, and you don't expect to see Dave. You're just like, yeah, you're chilling, you're getting some water, getting some M&Ms. It's great. We love it.
You're a hub guy.
I do like the hub. Yes. Yeah. I am right there in the hub.
Should we explain what the hub is? I feel like this.
No, yeah. I don't want nobody to know. If you know, you know.
No, the hub is it's a very nice central area in the office where the Cohens did a great job constructing. It's got snacks and the full fountain, soda, water, whatever you're into.
Peanut M&Ms, granola.
The cold brew. I don't know if you're a coffee guy.
I cannot do the cold brew.
No,
it's too much.
It's a little bit much.
Come on, you
I can't do enough cold brew.
It's a little bit much for me.
No cold brew today, but anyway, the hub is a great spot where people from different departments get to converge and meet and talk.
Since we got back from the new year, there's been some great snack additions in there.
I have not seen those. I stick to what's generally visible because if I dig,
there's some good protein bars in there now.
If I dig too deep, I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole that I may not want to go down to. So granola, peanut M&Ms, yogurt. That's what I stick
It's
to.
a healthy man.
All right. Well, David, thanks so much for joining us. Meet at the Apple. You can follow this podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm on Twitter at Vito F. Khaleesi, John at JMB9191. And you can see this guy behind the scenes at Citi Field. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time at the Apple.